Hi. Oh, you don't have to look too far from this perspective. What I'm going to show you now is something that might look at first glance like similar to something, to what Daniel showed us yesterday. It is similar, but at the same time it's something completely different. This thing is crazy. Oh, I don't have a... Still blue? Yeah. Okay. Give me a second. I have to remember my password. Oh yeah, I don't. Thank you. What do you see now?
Many faces.
Many faces. Oh yeah, that's how it should be. So before I'm going to present the person data repository, I want to start with a question, with a general question. The question why? Why are we modeling? I'm coming more from this pragmatical approach of data modeling. So if we never ever had to leave this room again, this would be the answer. We model data because it's fun. But as soon as we enter this elevator and go out of the street, we encounter reality suddenly. And then we need a little more pragmatical approach because we want to do something with our data. So from a more pragmatical point of view, we do data modeling because we want to structure information, to think clearer, to do better research, to gain knowledge, and in the end, hopefully wisdom. Or to say with easier words, to process, use, and understand data in better ways. If you cannot process data, it's useless. You don't need a data model if you cannot process it. To have a successful data model, applicable data model, you have to think a lot before you start. It must be well designed. And it has to have a designated use, a certain purpose. And to further the success, you should provide tools to generate, access, edit, analyze, visualize, and in the end to publish the data as well. So, and of course for people who don't want to see any angle brackets and don't care about data models at all. So these are the things we had to bear in mind when we started our project, the Person Data Repository. That's the context. It's funded by the DFG with a runtime for 2 years, and it ended last October. Which means we applied for the second phase. And although we don't have a concrete answer now, we're slightly optimistic that we can continue for 3 more years. The project is embedded in the work of the Toyota Initiative Working Group, which is roughly the age working group of the Berlin-Brandenburg Academy of Sciences and Humanities, the institute where I come from, and to which I will refer from now on just as the Academy, otherwise my time is running away. And you see a list of names, which are the names of persons who were involved or still are involved in this fabulous work. The aims of this project were first, of course, building a repository of biographic information, person data. We restricted the time period to the 19th century for 2 reasons. The first reason is obvious. We only had 2 years' time, so we had to say, or had to focus on something. The second reason is that many of the projects and long-term projects hosted by the Academy do research in the period of the 19th century. So they produce a lot of biographical information, or biographic information. So these are the two reasons. But all these projects produced this data in different formats. So we had a very heterogeneous data from different projects. Heterogeneous, in this case, does not necessarily mean different XML formats. It means Word documents, text files, databases, even books that we had to digitize. A second very important point is cooperation and in the implementation of a network. We want to set up more repositories all over the world and build a distributed system. So far we have one sister repository, so you cannot really talk of a network. And it's set up in Rome at the German Historic Institute there. The last important point or aim is open access. Everything we provide, the tools, the services, and the data is for free use. So please use it. Take our data, take our tools, and take our source code and approve it or join us. So far now, after 2 years, we have about 90,000 person objects, which is not equal with 90,000 persons, as this data comes from 10 different projects, and they're all doing research in the same period. That means there is an overlap with, so that 90,000 persons person objects are referring to not 90,000 persons. I cannot say how many persons. We have 400,000 aspects, which is the information about a person from circa 4,000 sources. So in total, we have to deal with circa 500,000 objects from these 10 different projects. And at this diagram, you can probably see, or probably you can't see, I cannot, the distribution of the aspects, the information that the peak is in the middle of the 19th century. So that's the way how biographic information modeling is done traditionally. You have normalized names, put in alphabetical order, and then when you found the person you're interested in, you can read the information about it. What you can not do with this kind of information is I have or work with very sophisticated research questions. For instance, or for example, if you want to know who signed the Declaration of Independence, you can just, yeah, I know, I'm sure you know. But what if you want to know who signed the Declaration of Independence and went to school together, probably, and met years later at a university at another place? Then you get stuck with this model, but you can use our model because it's much more flexible. So there it is, our data model. 3 objects, that it is. It's quite simple, which makes it very flexible, and that's what we needed and what we wanted. We wanted a simple model which is flexible enough to represent high complexity. So we have these 3 objects, which I will explain in more detail further on. The persons, the aspects, and references. References are the sources. The important points for us were it had to be flexible, transparent. It must, every time it must be clear where the information comes from which source, and who is responsible for extracting this information from a source. And it had to be extensible. Why? I know you surely think that 3 objects are not enough, and you're probably right. During the first project phase, we realized that yes, we need more. And these more things we see need for our places, corporate bodies, obvious, Even objects. Our corporate partner in Rome is doing research on musicians, and they want to describe musical instruments. And events, although no one knows what an event is, there is a need to describe them. So, this is how these three objects stick together. Well, I didn't mention the identifier, but this is clear that every object has to have an identifier. So, there we have a person. The green circle. The person itself doesn't contain any information. It just has an identifier or more identifier. In the aspects, you have the actual information extracted from the source. And the aspects pointing to the source where the information comes from. So this offers the opportunity to give contradictory information as well. So if aspect 1 says is born on March 1st and aspect 3 says it's born on May 1st, you can both have pointing to the same person object, and it's to the researcher to decide which one he prefers, which source he trusts more. Yeah. So, now let's have a look at these objects in detail. We start with the reference object, which is the only object we use an existing modeling scheme, the metadata object description language, which is fine for us for describing digital objects. So the reference object describes the source of an information, which can be a manuscript, a book, a person, a database, anything. And for us, it was important that from the aspects, we are always able to reconstruct the source. That we not have just the persons, but you also can reconstruct where the information comes from. There's the person object, which can have one or more identifiers, and that's it. Well, in the XML example, there's this element record, which is for administrative purposes, where the user is stored who generated this object, when it was generated, and when it was revised, or the revision statement. The identifiers, of course, every person object, as every object in this data model, has a PDR identifier from the person data repository, but it can have many more, right, from the PND or the LCCN or REAF or whatever, or you can introduce your own authority records, like the Musici project in Rome does. This is obviously in their authority record person number 65, which I don't know who he is or who she is. It's just the object, because who this person is described by the aspect object. The aspect object holds the information concerning a person. And this information is taken directly from the source. It's a string, how it is represented in the source with the same spelling. And then you add semantic information on a metadata level, where you can use our predefined set of classifications, or you can extend it, or you can use your own set. We're using tags for this. So we can say, for example, we have the information for a person, and this person is a philosopher. So we want to tag this as occupation and hobby, and then leave the decision and the interpretation if being a philosopher is an occupation or a hobby to the scholar. So we don't label the information directly. And the aspect objects additionally have geographical statements, time statements, relationships to persons and other objects, other aspects. And the context, of course, as I said, the source I come from, the certainty, and the responsibility, which means who am I, the user who are generating this aspect object. This is exactly what I just said, just formalized in a diagram with blue boxes. And this is an example, an XML serialization. All these objects are described, the aspect and the person objects are described in XML schema. So the information, the actual information is in the lower part of this document in the notification element. There you have the string, how it comes directly from the source. And this string you can annotate with further markup, further annotation, which is aligned at a TI, but on a very flat level. We don't allow too much nesting at this point for processing reasons. Another big problem, identity. We have these person objects, but we don't know who they are. So we identify the persons via identifier, like the PND or LCCN authority records. So here we have three persons, P1, P3, P2, and P3. And P1 and P2 have the same ID, the same identifier, the same PND number. So that means that the blue box, the aspect, in the far left, also belongs to P2, not just to P1. And if you go one step further, and you identify that P2 and P3 are also the same persons via LCCN, for example, then you know that every aspect belonging to P1 is also valid for P3. That's because the same person. But I know, it's not that easy. But the scholar or the user or the researcher doesn't have to believe this. You can decide, yeah, no, I don't trust you. I know it's not true. So the decision, this is just the model. What you make with the model, how you use the model, is on the scholar's side. But this is concrete example of Rudolf Virchow. On the left, you see the data sources where the information comes from. Then you see the extracted aspects pointing to the person objects, and then the identifiers I just described, how we suggest identity. So what are you doing with this all? Now the repository is coming. We put this all in a Fedora repository connected with a Lucene Solr-based search index. And we provide conversion services for different kinds of sources that are scripts which convert all this heterogeneous data into aspect model. And we provide exchange services for interoperability reasons. We have software, a tool with a very nice user interface everybody can use to collect data. It's synchronized with the repository. You can work offline. When you synchronize it, it's updated and you can search the data. And we provide publishing service, which means a web service, some kind of API, and a direct access to the repository as well. So now this is our dream, to have a network of different repositories where different scholars provide data and can use the data of the other scholars, where everything is connected with each other. As I said, we now are 2 repositories, and we're looking forward to be more in the future. So how can you use the PDR? I just mentioned it. We have this very cool archive editor, which is connected and synchronized with the repository, which helps you to get helps to get the direct access to the authority records, and which helps you to follow directly this data model without knowing how this data model works. And when a scholar comes to us and says, yeah, I want to do something, I have data for person information, which I want to collect in a way, we say, yeah, we have the proper tool, take it. And then they say, yeah, wow, that's so impressive. That's so cool, so powerful, what you can do with it. But I'm not willing to learn it because I don't need all these features. What I need is just a table to put in a name, a place of birth, a date of birth, occupation, education, all this stuff. And then you say, yeah, and in 2 years you come back to us and say you want to do research on your data, and it's not possible because it's not powerful enough what you have there. So what we did then, we met in the middle and built a simplified user interface, which doesn't offer all the features, but reduces the shocking factor. So I hope people are using more and more. We have a website, of course, where you can, this is just an example website. It's unfortunately not yet available for the public, but I can show you during lunch break, where you can exactly do these kinds of query or research query that I mentioned before. We have this PID, the PDR interface tools, which are web services. You can directly access the repository. I wanted to show you this live, but I think I'm already late, am I? Yeah, okay, yeah, I have 2 or more slides. You might have wondered, I didn't show you a network visualization, because this is what people are thinking always first off when talking about personal information. Wow, you can build networks. Well, it's not that easy, because we have so many different kinds of relations between people that you can say, yeah, you can build a network or you can build a professional network or correspondence network. But when you imagine, yeah, Wendell sitting here has been cited by Trevor, and Laurent is writing his son an email about it. Then what is the relation between these persons? How could the network look like? So we have other things, not networks yet, we're working on it. We have the archive editor, which is well documented, and it comes with a multilingual user interface. It's available in German, Italian, and in English. We have a website for querying sophisticated research questions. We have these conversion scripts, which do, while transforming data, automatic pattern recognition for dates and places, which works quite well if your place is located in Prussia of the 19th century. We have interfaces, as I mentioned, and we have something alien, we have a documentation. And for the second project phase, we want to get rid of these time boundaries. No limbs anymore. We want to collect data from any period of history. We want to extend the data model, as I mentioned, and try to improve automatic identity recognition. we want to support workflows. This is something which came from the scholars. They said, yeah, I want to start with the archive editor, my work, and I want to always have the feeling that I have support, that I know which revision it is, from starting reading the source until publishing the research results. They want to be treated very well, so we want to support this workflow. This is what TextGrid very well does. We want to improve interoperability, so we want to export in different formats like TI, RDF to become a part of the linked open data world. And we want to export JSON. We want to do much more visualizations. I didn't show you any visualization because this is integrated in PID. We think about a jQuery plugin that if you're building a digital resource, you have persons in your material. You can just link this or identify this person with an identifier and point to the person data repository, and then you get back all the information to this person, or just the information you want, and you can show it with this jQuery plugin on the fly. And we are looking for more corporations to build this network of person data repositories. So please join us. Get your own instance of a person data repository. Let's build this network of person data repositories. And then lunch break. Yeah, you will.
Yeah, where's the key? Really cool stuff. I love playing with this idea both of describing people and dealing with the problem of identifying people and disambiguating them and deciding the two. But a couple questions about the model, since this is a data model workshop. I didn't catch, when you have an aspect, can an aspect apply to more than one person object?
Oh, no, of course not. You have, if I may take you as an example again, if you have the information that is that Mr. Peets attended a data modeling workshop back in 2012, then you're not sure if it's Wendell Peets or his father. You can set that you have this certainty statement that you can assure it's probably Wendell, but perhaps it was his father.
I think he's watching.
Oh. My parents are watching too. And you can do this as well with the information like the signing up the Declaration of Independence and pointing to all the person objects who are part of this event. So this is rather an event
So to represent that we're all here, in the fear of ambiguity is what stops you from using one aspect to say, to point to 20, 40 people, whatever we are. So we have 40 aspects attended this workshop.
No, we have one aspect pointing to 40 persons.
Yes, we do have one.
Yeah.
Only one.
Yeah.
And that aspect would have to be, in this case, a corporate body, just to say us. That one aspect reinterpreted, I would say, would be a corporate body, which is to say all of us gathered here for a certain range of time under the name of knowledge organization and data modeling.
But then you have the problem. Is this a corporate body or is this an event? So we thought, that's the reason why we thought we don't do any prediction of any information. We just say it's an aspect describing a person. And then the scholar can decide if it's an event or not.
The library world designates a conference. And they classify it because they divide the world up. You have to put everything into a slot as a corporate body.
Yeah, I hope they have a really good definition for conference, so we know when we're at a conference or a workshop
Yeah, well,
meeting that got
here's the
official.
thing, they don't get into that conference or expedition.
Well, and Alex is
If you were a botanical expedition,
Right.
you would be.
Well, and what Alex is suggesting is something analogous to Tomas and the Emily was, so we're just going to
Exactly.
build up
Exactly.
from those assertions that there's more negatives happening.
Right, so in fact, we might have a conference-like description of this thing, and we might also have a more meeting-like description, which treats each of us as individuals, or something like that. That would be nice. Max,
One thing, I think the point you have on your one of your on your list, like export, right? Because I think that's something which is missing in a lot of other digital humanities projects, and it actually should enable you to solve a lot of other problems on your list to do. So the export is actually, I think, the most important thing, because if you do networks and visualization, right, you will come up, say, with one tool, with one or a couple of algorithms, will do it in one way or another, right? But you
So what?
if you have this export to Thai RDF, or
Yeah.
link log to link data cloud, right? Chasing whatever, and then the visualization maps timeline charts and pipes, right?
Yeah.
So there is one thing about network visualization, for example, is that you can easily visualize a network on a small level, which will basically boil down to the same thing what the user interface does, right? Because what you see is actually a small network, which is going to get into some text. But if you want to analyze, say, the whole social network structure of this whole thing, including all the link types, it's very likely that you will have orders of magnitude better results if you just throw it to the social network graph, which is huge, by the way, and just let them mess with it. And then one guy says, yeah,
That's exactly what we
that's
do.
yeah. So basically, to have that on the agenda would be something really, really interesting, and then have a feedback to the model, which is something very interesting. That's something which doesn't really exist, right? There's people who analyze data, and there's
But
people
these are 2 points. The one thing is what you said. We export the data, and anyone can use it. So if you want to use it, if you want to do analyze the whole thing, please do so. We would appreciate it. The other thing is we want to test our model, and therefore we're doing these visualizations and to see if this works. What we thought beforehand, that we thought, yeah, we want to model this in this certain way because we want to visualize maps, networks, timelines, stuff like that. And we want to do this from a humanities or digital humanities point of view. And it's like doing digital humanities research. Yeah.
In one of your earlier slides, I noticed a DOI associated with something, but I wasn't sure whether it was for a record describing a person, or what gets a DOI in your system. For instance, if I submit a Julia Flavor system,
Identify a document.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
It's usually a document.
And how do you disembed? How do you merge items?
Never do not
Never
merge
merge
items.
items.
No.
Yeah.
Just pointing
Yeah.
3 items. And
So
then-
if there might be 15 Julia Flanders, and that's
Exactly. But they're all the same. But who knows if these 50 Julia Flanders are all the same? Who knows? You can only do research on it and then decide this Julia Flander is identical to that, that, and that. But this not. So you cannot put all data together because, yeah, that's all I think. Don't feel that confident. Probably.
There's 2 questions. The first is rather practical one. What is the status of the data? So you captured this from publications from the academy services from your presentation. How accurate are these data? And the second question leads to the precision you offer in your data model. So this is a very simple, so to speak, data model. And it might happen if you've got a PNT or a GNT number that you have access to more accurate information in terms of ontology. How can you manage to integrate integrate this in your data model. So isn't this a problem of consistency later? So if you ask the crowd to give you information, then your model may be not efficient enough to give this position the crowd gives you. It's a little concern.
On what point not efficient enough?
So for instance, say, think something like about a Scott's preferred label. So we have various labels for a person. And in P&D, you have this preferred label, Ansitzungsform.
Yeah.
How do you define this in your data model?
You generate an aspect.
Well, you have to quantify
Generate
the aspect.
Yeah, you have to qualify the aspect. You say, this, you have a name. So, have a name. Let's, Randy, please. Sorry, Randy.
Kristen,
Let's say Randy Pizza is a name. Then you have an aspect with a semantic statement that says it's the norm name of the PNE. And you have to qualify the certainty. You say we trust the German National Library, so he is it.
We trust you to trust them. I think that's part of the issue.
Yeah.
Is, you know,
Of course.
what is the witness? Who's the witness? And are they trustworthy?
That's it. That's a very interesting. In census.gov, is 20 data points for road population before 1800. Nevertheless, nature and science papers get away with saying, I have the road population data from census.gov, right? Which is basically, there's no reason why that should be more accurate or awesome than somebody else's estimate, because they only have 20 years. But so basically boiling down to that, right? The Gettys, or also the census, which is also Brandenburger project, they have this state where they say, if we produce data, it's actually the opinion of the curator. So we can actually say, okay, we have say 27 aspects which are called Julia Flanders, but actually our preferred ID for them is PND, right? Or vice versa, you could say, okay, for this ID, our preferred Julia Flanders aspect is actually this, which helps you if you then go and look for the data, right? Or look into the data, and you want to visualize something, you have to, for example, decide on which label you actually put on that node, right?
That's true, but the problem is different people prefer different things.
Yeah, but
So we don't give any preference.
So no, to give an example, there is people in Wikipedia which are like Einstein as a scientist, but he might also be a piano player or a pianist, whatever. I don't know. And then the question is, what do you say? It's pretty clear for Einstein, it's also pretty clear for Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, composer, that this is this one guy, even though there might be other people who call themselves like that, right? But for most of the other people, for Julia Flanders, for the 37 Julia Flanders, you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's a really, really big problem if you want to get quantitative in terms of
It's true, but we cannot solve this problem. We can just provide the information.
It's, you know, one
Alex gets into data set, you can see.
one problem with that, though, is at the current time, the people who are moving into this arena are the owners of intellectual property. Instead, the accuracy and reliability of being able to identify someone accurately as a legal entity with rights becomes extremely critical. So it doesn't become a matter of competition out there to make this determination. You know, and that's, you know, I mean, there are things going on like this all over the place, but they're looking for very reliable identification of a person. That's the intellectual property view. Because on the other side, the dark side, of course, you have governments that are very interested in positive identification.
Actually, at first, hear somehow what identity means. Because sometimes I got a feeling that when I'm sitting in the audience, I'm a different person than I'm standing in front of the audience. So. No, sit down.
It's time to pull out warnings.